Hello, everyone. Welcome to a Quo Vadis webinar interview with my friend Joe Martin, the founder and co-founder and CEO of Tickle. Hey, Joe, how's it going?
Very well. Good to be here, Tom. Thank you.
Good to have you. Looking forward to seeing you next week in France, even though we both hang out in New York. So I guess that's just the way it is. Um, So, folks, this is I do these occasional pre-cam. I do webinars all the time, but this is a pre-cam webinar on a really interesting topic. We did a 5 question sort of written interview, kind of a format that we do in the newsletter, which I did with Joe that was on June 5th that came out. And I wanted to just have a chat because I'm fascinated with this area around savable ads, right? And that's the thing is like, when you think about when you're presented with this question that you've never thought about before about consumers and they're on their phones and they're surfing around the web and they screenshot an ad and they just goes into their camera roll and they save it. Um, and what Tickle does is they make that process easy by basically, if you're wrapping the creative, and you make it easy to swipe the creative or click the creative to save to your wallet on your iPhone and your Android phone. It's interesting that people do that. You give people the ability to do that, and they do it, and then that's super interesting just because of what you can do with that, because now you're inside notifications, you're showing the creative inside Instagram, right? Or on the web or anywhere. So Joe, let's just I don't know if I did it justice, but you go ahead. You tell me if I gave it justice.
No, look, absolutely. And I think the point is, it's simple. It's simple to understand. It's simple to explain, and it's now simple to execute. And that's entirely it. Like the whole point of advertising, I think, referring back to Byron Sharp, is the point of being remembered. At the
Yeah.
point that consumers are actually looking to purchase something. So there's a whole, raft of information, data, statistics, everything that comes from advertising as it is today. But the real question is it serving the right people?
All
Is
right.
the data being measured? And actually, the human, I always look at things from the consumer being the prize, right? That's what we want as brands, as advertisers. We want the consumer to take an action, either find out more or engage, purchase. Um, But and again, back to the question of this webinar, is advertising actually built for humans, or is it a case that humans are just part of it, but they are the fundamental prize of advertising is being ignored, and that's getting a
Yeah.
human to actually engage. And
Yeah.
it's such a huge, huge area, and obviously the industry is absolutely huge, and fundamentally, it's not doing things for the right reason, I think, and that's kind of where Tickle comes in.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I just want to start with sort of like, um, I want to kind of dig deeper into the 5 questions that we talk about in the
Yeah.
written interview, but also for folks out there who know, Rory Sutherland, he is probably, I mean, probably the single most. Well, there's a couple people that are really good out there on the creative side, but he's at Ogilvy. He's been there a long time, and he's probably at the pinnacle of the creative advertising community. And he's great because he goes on all these talks. He does TED talks. He has got he's on pods. He's great because his personality is so big and he's so smart when it comes to behavioral psychology, right? And he's a legend in the industry. And he stumbles across this company, Tickle, and just started talking about it. And you did not know him yet at all.
Right.
He found it and said, "There's this amazing thing out there that it just makes so much sense." So, you can just elaborate on that and how it's evolved.
I mean, yeah, that's wild. Like, obviously, being anywhere near advertising, I think a lot of people know who Rory Sutherland is, and he's now blown up massively. And he was telling me directly, just he's like TikTok famous because everybody is snipping his kind of little moments of wisdom, and putting it out there. Now again, we were talking to Dan, who runs the behavioral part of Ogilvy. and one of my team was talking to him, and he just put it on Rory's radar. And then out of the blue, I just get an email saying, "I'm so glad you exist."
Yeah,
And I'm
that's
like,
amazing.
hang on a minute. And I was like, the Rory Sutherland, right? So I double checked his email and everything else. And then I was like, cool.
Yeah,
So
it
I
could have
emailed
been
him.
like it could have been like me or someone playing a joke on you.
Well, exactly, exactly. You never know. It was just so out of the blue. And then I dropped him an email. We set up a call. Before we'd even had that call, he wrote about us on LinkedIn. So there's this whole long article, and he's kind of referring. He's so smart on how he kind of articulates his point. But he starts off talking about Bonnie Blue, and then kind of like on demand everything, and it's kind of like it takes your mind on a journey. But then he talks about Tickle, and his whole point, one of his strongest points, he has such a firm belief in post still as a media mechanic, because you get a letter in a post, you pick it up, you put it on the side in the toast rack, as he says, and then you come back to it a couple of days later when you are in the right frame of mind or have the time and bandwidth to actually engage with that item. So this plays in very much to what he's
It's
always talking.
like you're talking about direct mail, right?
Exactly, direct mail. Yeah.
That's a $65 billion business. That's bigger than that's 1.5x bigger than open web programmatic. That's how big it is. That and that's not that, then there's email marketing on top of it.
Yeah.
But that's just regular old school physical mail to the mailbox. It's a great business. Um, yeah, and it worked because it works. I mean, it's still alive and kicking because it works, like linear TV because it works.
Exactly. I think we'll talk about TV in a bit probably, but I think like it's, and again, this comes to AI, like new things come along all the time. So when I talk about this, talk about Tickle in particular, but as an industry right now, AI is there. It's big, it's shiny. And when new things that big and impactful come along, you find like 99% of people are kind of blown away by it. They're staring at the big shiny thing. That's where all of their focus goes. And it's, yes, it does amazing things. And I think one of Rory's points is, AI will make advertising faster to develop, to deliver, etc. But if faster ads or faster delivery of ads isn't the problem, if that was never the bottleneck, then it's the right answer to the wrong question.
Right.
So what he comes back to a lot, and again, what we talk about is about relevance and trust. And I think now, I think even at the AdTech Economic Forum, you had some agencies there that were talking about relevance and trust
Yeah.
being kind of like the big thing that agencies in particular now need to lean into. Um, and that's like a really interesting concept. And then as Tickle has grown, as we're having more data coming in, we start to kind of understand the reasons why that is such
Hmm.
a powerful kind of position to take up, because that is what brands demand.
Yeah, we're going to get into the data that because the data is really interesting, right? Because
Fascinating.
when
Yeah.
someone you're just, I mean, folks, actually, before I carry on there, I do want to share my screen here because I do want to play. I don't know if this is going to work. Hold on one second. Sorry, guys. Share screen, start share. I want to share my screen. There we go. I hit the wrong button before, and I don't know if this is going to play or not. That's my kid. There we go.
You are
Can
also,
you
as
hear
well as
that?
being bottom of the
Oh,
funnel
yeah.
performance
Yeah.
marketing, context sensitive brand advertising, which is brand advertising that appears in a really relevant and sensible place. Don't be ashamed of saying that. This is one of the best ideas. Anybody come across this thing, Tickle? I've written about it on LinkedIn. It's an online ad where the call to action is not click here, it's save to wallet. And you can distribute a voucher or an incentive or value on, or just a reminder or a ticket or anything you like, and you distribute it where the call to action is effectively add to my Google Wallet or add to my Apple Wallet rather than click here. They see extraordinary success because most advertising in that medium is good idea, wrong time. And this acknowledges that by saying, I know you don't want to do this now, but why don't you save this for later? Direct mail, physical direct mail still works really, really well because the average piece is kept for 5 or 6 days, it's looked at for 124 seconds, and it's engaged with at a moment of the consumer's own
That's
choosing,
key.
not when the advertiser demands you look at something. It's simply context sensitive as a medium because
You get so that's kind of says the point there, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's more to it. You guys can see that in the post, the videos in there. You can look it up on YouTube, and there's more than just that. Which it's Rory at a couple different places, you know, talking about this. So before we go, I want to dovetail back into the data that you're collecting, but I want to start with this question that we talked about in the written piece. 78% of consumers have taken a screenshot of their ad,
Yeah.
right? And then making it not what your technology does, it makes it easy. It's like actually you're enabling it. And maybe there's people who have never thought about it before, but when they see the creative and they're in Instagram and they see something and they don't want to mess up with their feed and what they're doing. Maybe they're just spending time scrolling down like people do, and then they're like, oh, well, you know what? I'll look at that later, just like Roy Sutherland just talked about. So kind of walk us through this a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll actually start a little bit before that because it gives relevance to kind of why we started looking at this. So in 2016, 10 years ago now, I launched an app called Snatch. And
Mhm.
basically what I did is created an augmented reality treasure hunt. So this is pre-Pokemon. So easiest way to think of it, Pokemon, but instead of Pokemon, you're finding ads. So what I did is I hid brand ads inside parcels. I let people go out across the country,
Great.
find parcels. Once they kept or caught the parcel, they had to defend it from others, and others are trying to snatch it from them. When the parcel opened up after 6 hours, they won what was inside. So if you can imagine, like Nike, for example, Nike, I had a pair of trainers. What I'd do every day at the beginning of the day, the consumer would get a list of all of the brands and products that were going to be on the map that day. What they did is they ticked the box if they wanted to add that product into their map, into their world for that day. Now, at the time, I thought that was super interesting, but fundamentally looking back, I think that was the smartest thing that we did because when people actually redeemed the parcel, they'd go ahead or open the parcel, they'd go ahead and redeem it because they'd worked hard for it. But again, imagine Nike put out 20 pair of sneakers, but 100,000 people said they want those trainers. I've now got every single person that said they want those sneakers actively engaged, and I can go to
Mhm.
Nike and say, look, these people want that product. So now you can engage with them knowing that the intent is already there.
Exactly.
And that was huge for us. And when I dissected it after it was acquired, that's kind of what I wanted to look at. I mean, the app itself told its own story. It was number one on both app stores because of these mechanics that we put in. It became the number one customer acquisition platform for the majority of the 200 brands that we served over like a 12-month period. And that's where it became really interesting for us because effectively, when an ad stops behaving like an ad, the consumer engages differently.
Yeah.
So in that instance, they're just saying, "Oh, I like those. I want them. I want to see if I can go and win those today." And if they don't win them, all of a sudden they get a notification from Nike saying, "Oh, we know you wanted these products or these sneakers. You didn't win them. Here's 20% off if you buy in the next 7 days."
Yeah.
So what I wanted to look at is what other actions are consumers taking today when they're engaging with brands or advertising that effectively show intent, but in a different way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's why we started asking the question of how do you engage with ads? Why don't you engage with ads? It's not rocket science. I don't want to be interrupted. How do you engage with ads?
Yeah,
And
I mean,
like,
is it like are consumers doing something that I don't know about that, if observed, could be quite interesting because
yeah,
it does provide
absolutely.
a signal? It's almost as if kind of like thinking about it, like I said before, about like behavioral psychology and thinking about a field study and trying to understand sort of how do I get into the circumstances to observe somebody doing something that could be a predictor of something else, basically, right?
Exactly. And as I've always done is I look at myself first. What makes me engage with an ad or enjoy an ad or click through or whatever else? And something that I've always done is screenshot ads. I take a picture of billboards when I'm on the subway. I screenshot ads when I don't want to click through yet. So we,
I wonder. I think a lot of people, particularly if you're around places like New York and London, or
yeah,
I mean, Joe, you're English, but you live in New York, and I've done it in the metro in Paris. I've done it in Milan. You just see something, and it could just be. I mean, maybe it's because I've been in the advertising industry. It could just be, holy shit, that's a really good piece of creative, right? You take a picture of
yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah,
or it could
yeah.
be something that's actually relevant, like for whatever it might be, because it's a product that you want to, or it's like, hey, I'll take a picture of it. I mean, I've taken a picture of a bill. There's a big billboard and I'm sure a lot of people do this. There's a big billboard at, I want to say Lafayette, and it's over like in the like Nolita area, right? In the Westville, in the village. And it was, I don't care now, I can't remember today because it was like a couple of years ago, but I think it was Gucci, but it was really good. And I took a picture and I immediately sent it to my wife. I'm like, hey, look at that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Right. And so I think people do a lot of that. So therefore, well, it's not that big of a jump from being in Instagram, on a Facebook feed, in a Snap feed, whatever, TikTok, and going, oh, wait a minute, I want to screenshot that. And and so people do that. And now
But
making it easy. I
yeah,
think what I want to get into is in the wallet. This is to me is the big thing. It's like being able to see, hey, saved a wallet,
mm,
consumer clicks on it. Now I'm in the walled garden. I'm on the phone, Android or Apple,
yeah,
right? And now I can send push notifications, and I can also leverage, if I've got several things in my wallet, there's a basket of behavioral psychology in what I've saved. And then the
yeah.
data things are, I mean, the conversation is endless around all the interesting data points once you see that the consumer has done this. And then you can communicate with them. You can send them an
Exactly.
offer.
Exactly that. And it goes back to what I was saying. So at that point, what we're basically saying is that we enable brands to turn that ad into a savable asset. They're not, in the way that we think about it, is they're not saving an ad. They're now saving something that means something to them in the most trusted and exclusive place on their
They're
phone. It's
saving they're saving the potential of utility,
exactly
meaning because I think people often forget that people don't buy products, they hire products and they fire
right,
products, right? They hire
right.
products to get jobs done. And it doesn't matter what it is. It's a universal thing that applies, right? Um, and so they save it for the potential of future utility because they're trying to get some job done, right? And what I mean by that, folks, is if you think about like mascara, right? It's
Mm,
getting a job done. It's getting various jobs done, right? There's three types of jobs that get done: a functional job, a social job, or an emotional job,
correct.
right? A Rolex watch, the functional job is it tells time. Well, but the social job is it says I've made it, and the emotional job is, which is connected, it says, oh, look, it makes me feel good to show people that I've made it, right? Or you just might want a superior watch that's basically indestructible, right? Um, Porsche 911, fancy fast cars. They're really expensive. They get you from A to B just like a Prius could, right?
Yeah.
Um, so they want to get a job done. So to me, when they save the ad, to me, it's an expression of, hey, this has got a probability of future utility gain for me. I'll save it because it's that compelling. And then you go back to it, like Roy Sutherland said, and look at it in the context of, like think about it. When you go to your wallet, because you're going to go use Apple Pay or something, or look at one of your Amex card that's in there, and you're like, oh, wait a minute. You see actually the other stuff that's in there,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So it's very compelling.
Yeah. So it has that residual presence for a brand. And I think you look at, and these are further questions that we asked when we looked at people screenshotting, 90+% of people forget to go back to that ad. So you've got the utility, you've got the intent that you're capturing in the moment, but then we're humans. It's why we have calendars. It's why I have to be reminded all the time by my girlfriend
Yeah.
of things that need to be done. So what our system is doing is it's automating those notifications, depending on the brand, depending on the vertical, to remind people that first of all, you've saved this. Then there's a quick recall that we send after like 24 hours. And then depending on the actual product and brand itself, there's a cadence over weeks and months. But what we find is each of those touch points is a little trigger that goes back to them to go, oh, yeah, I remember I needed that. Now I need that
Because
now.
they did something originally that was
Yeah.
valuable to them. And I think also if you're taking a screenshot of something, it ends up in your camera roll. But if particularly, I mean, if you're, I mean, there's lots like, I don't know, my wife takes so many pictures, she'd be gone. You'd have to scroll to go, because after 2 days, there's so many more pictures in the camera roll. You have to scroll, and
Yeah.
it's your eye has to catch it. Like, which one was it? You know? And I think just
Well,
removing that friction is
yeah.
important. That's what you've done.
But that analogy in itself is very interesting because the way you've just described the camera roll is exactly what happens with us now with email. And when it comes obviously to AI and automation, so I can guarantee by the time we finish this call, I've had at least 50 emails. So whatever somebody emailed me when we were setting this call up, I'm not going to see it. And now I'm trained to scan my inbox rather than actually engage, and
Yeah.
primarily looking for something that already exists. So whether that's
Yeah.
an email from an investor or a client, it's going to be much, much harder to get my attention for anything new right now.
Yeah.
But then, and that's what we hear a lot when we're talking with brands, like their email inbox, like or their CRMs, they're not getting anywhere near the cut through, around like 80% drop off just in engagement on email. So
Yeah.
great thing about the wallet itself is that it's not just a utility platform, it's a communication platform, but it hasn't
Yeah.
been utilized as such yet. And there are which I think are beneficial for us, the consumers, the industry. Apple and Google both have guardrails around that. There are certain detailed personal information you can't see. Naturally, you can't see anything else that's in the wallet itself, so it's super safe.
Obviously.
And it means that it can't be hacked, scammed, or spammed. So, from a consumer perspective, everything that then comes to me from the wallet as a notification, I'm already trusting it. I've gone past that bias of, or not even a bias, they call it persuasion knowledge. So today's world, because we've had 30 years of kind of spam, etc., scams, I'm automatically treating anything new with suspicion.
Yeah.
When it comes from the wallet, I know that I put it there, I've effectively opted in already. So that's just of interest to me. Now, if
Yeah.
the brand today is sat there going, oh, well, we've got like 0.0x% engagement rates. There's a number of reasons for that. But then the consumer sat there with a full photo reel of all these ads. Like, my goal really was like, what can we do to bridge that gap? If a brand knew
Hmm.
that these consumers were saving these things, that intent signal is incredibly strong. It's even more strong today when everything around us is becoming synthetic.
No, no, yeah. And think about, I mean, the use cases are sort of like really sprawl. Like, for example, you know, even, um, 100 people, I'm making this up, but 100 people that save the same ad. And let's say only 100 people do it out of this, whatever this one piece of creative is for a particular company, for a product. That in and of itself, as a seed for lookalike modeling, which now becomes,
Yeah.
I think, better and better and better because of how AI can use unstructured data from the seed, right, to go find really good lookalikes, higher probability
Yeah.
lookalikes. And now you can take that on the media side and you can scale that to a
Yeah.
very big mass, a much larger type of audience, and probably get better results than what you're targeting and how you're targeting today, right?
100%. And we're proving that out. Like one of the things that we added at the beginning of this year was the ability to capture that intent layer, feed it back into the DSP or into Meta's ads manager to actually then start optimizing mid-flight. Because that is a layer of data that doesn't exist today. And it's in a world where obviously advertising has been quite binary or ads have been quite binary. You click because I'm in the moment, I want to purchase, or I don't. Um, there's nothing in between. So there's a third state, which is that deferred intent. And that's the gap that we are effectively filling. So now, as a consumer, if I go, okay, well, I'm busy, but I want to save that for later, I swipe the ad, click on it, whatever the mechanic is. We can now optimize against that and feed that back in so that the brand or the agency can go, okay, well, we've got a new layer of intent here, which isn't a full clicking through, but they've told us that I'm interested and I want that. And we can keep coming back to it. And I think that's the kind of the crux of where we're going, because everything today pretty much optimizes for the point of delivery, whereas nothing is really optimizing for the point of decision. And it comes back to what we talked about. So having that direct route back to you save this, you're interested in it, I'm now ready. 3 weeks later, we're constantly keeping it top of mind. And we see that in our
Yeah.
data. So we'll have campaigns. We did a campaign with a major CPG. It's not a product that we thought would be particularly interesting for this use case, but as we're seeing with most products, it's exactly the same across the board. So increase in engagement at the top. People were saving the ad, and we have a unit as well where, because we make sure all of our ad units are still clickable. So if anybody does want to click through in the moment, they can. For everybody else, they save. So they'd click through. Instead of going to site, 88% of people said, I don't want to look at this right now. I want to save it, come back to it later. And then as the weeks went on, our system's churning out the right notifications to send them. After about 4 weeks, 54% of people had returned to that ad over a 4-week period to then click out, go to site. That's wild.
Yeah.
And that's why this is so exciting for us, because we know that if that wasn't there, you would have clicked or not clicked. Most would have not clicked. Those who did click would probably bounce straight away. And then you're waiting for another moment in time, whether that's an ad or an external trigger, in the hope that that same person is going to see that ad again. Whereas you now, as a brand, can control that entire purchase journey.
Yeah. I'm also thinking about how cool it is around so sort of like the attributes of a person who takes the shortcut to save ads. And of course, I'm thinking in terms of not screenshot, but actually, because the facilities available in the ad unit with a Tickle ad unit, for example, working on behalf of your clients. I'm wondering, like, well, I kind of want to know from a targeting perspective. I want to know. I want to almost like have a segment that says this segment is a high probability saver. It's a personality type that would have a good enough probability to be an ad saver, right? Versus somebody who will never ever do it, no matter how easy you make it, right? And it's interesting that there's a whole population out there of these folks, because it's still like this is something relatively new. I was just thinking about that. That's an interesting. There's savers and not savers.
100%. And I think, and it's interesting, obviously, when we talk to, or any room, and actually investors is probably the prime example. So we went out to raise capital and we talked to investors, and obviously we dropped 78% stat. And typically, if there's 3 or 4 people in the room, like 3 out of the 4 would put their hand up and say, oh, yeah, I do that. And then the one who doesn't will go away and speak to their other half or their son, their daughter, and then come back and go, yeah, they do that. So it's
because they never thought about it before.
because they never thought about it. Yeah, exactly. But it's we're trying to get ourselves to a position where we can go, okay, well, this is the type of personality or the type of demographic that is going to save this. But we see a complete, different world of people from Gen Z all the way through to obviously millennials. But then we've had people saving like in their 70s. So it's if they can use the phone and they understand the concept of it, that we are tapping into a human behavior. And again, I think this is why we see that when we go out and we try, and I was saying earlier, try and find out, well, where does this really sit? What vertical does this really work for?
Yeah. Question. Is there like, if I buy an airline ticket and then it's in my wallet, add the wallet, I board the flight, I got my boarding pass, and then, the next day it's like automatically removed basically from my wallet because the thing is passed. Is there a time limit? Like I'm on Instagram, I see, I don't know, the Mach 3, Mustang. I'm like, oh, that's a really cool whatever design package they put on. I take a picture, it goes in my wallet. Is there an expiration? Because otherwise, I could end up with lots of too many things in my wallet, too many things
Yeah,
saved in my wallet. That's mixed in with airline tickets or events or whatever else I'm doing.
yeah. So there's a couple of points in there. So we separate the saved assets from the bank cards, etc. So
Yeah.
they will sit under the bank card.
Yeah. I'm just
Then
looking right now. Yeah.
we
Cause I figured it would be that way.
Yeah, then we stack them. So we don't have, you're not going to have like reams and reams and reams of all these ads. Like we're going to stack them vertically, sorry, horizontally. So then every time you get a notification, it automatically goes to the wallet, shuffles the deck, picks the right ad, services it to you or asset in the wallet.
Mm-hmm.
So from the consumer perspective, they have complete control at the same time. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what we love about it. Number one reason people delete apps is because they get too many notifications. They're just blasting them for no reason. There's no value there. So we don't
Right.
let brands send three, four, five notifications a day. It doesn't make sense. But we do control how long the card lives for. And but we don't delete it. We can archive it. So it depends on the brand. I love the date scenario because as we've
Mm-hmm.
seen numerous times, like this sale is on for the next 4 weeks. There's always a spike towards the end as we can drive FOMO to people to go back to the wallet and then click out. Whether we're driving them physically into footstall, we have a footstall, physical footfall into stores. We have location-based triggers as well, or there is online. There's always peaks around that. But then we've
Wait. Hold on. So let's say I saved a picture of a pair of Sambas, Adidas Sambas, right? And I'm walking down Spring Street, and there's sort of this potentiality around. I'm walking down Spring Street in Olita. There's an Adidas shop there. I'm right around the corner, and I could get a push notification because I already have saved the ad for the Sambas.
exactly.
Okay, that's really cool.
Exactly that. So it might not just be about the Sambas, it's whatever Adidas wants to push at that time.
Yeah,
And then, but that's the what I love about this is it's entirely dynamic. So let's say in that example, you save some Sambas, but then Adidas wanted to push, I don't know, new pair of football boots like the Adizeros or something the following month. They can update that card dynamically. So they only need to capture you once. So after the Samba sale or whatever it is finishes, they can now update the card and go, okay, now here's some new information. Here's a new product. They can change the image. They can change the information on the back of the card. They can update the notifications. So that's new. And the notifications for the
but
triggers.
that's really, really compelling.
So then we start talking about, well, this isn't just a nice little functionality to have. Like this is an infrastructure layer. This is a new communication channel. So we're
That's
talking
exactly it.
exactly. And it's one that is invited in by the consumer. They've said, I want this, come talk to me. They can turn you off if you abuse their trust. But brands are smart these days. You've been
And
through
then
the multiple cycles.
And the other thing that's really interesting is that where the ad was saved from. So, for example,
Correct.
I could see the creative on, I could be in the New York Times website on a browser, or I could be in the New York Times app,
Yeah.
or I could be on Instagram. And you know that that's where the originating save was from. So that's interesting because who gets the attribution
Mm.
at the end when I buy the Sambas, whether I buy them online or I buy them in the store. But I acted on that card that was in my wallet. But the originating point was on a feed in Instagram or on New York Times, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So it's interesting. I mean, yeah, it's phenomenally interesting. And there's different layers to that. What we do right now effectively is we freeze intent. We freeze that moment in time. So whatever link or URL was being used, if let's say I didn't save the ad, but I wanted to click through in that moment, we effectively take that.
You're
So
preserving that.
we're preserving that attribution with a little bit of tickle on the end.
Hmm.
So when I convert,
Hence the
let's
name of the
say,
company.
I have a problem with naming companies, don't I? People keep telling me. I've got a track record.
Yeah.
I will another time. I'll explain where Tickle comes from, but it's all good connotations. But it is like that's what we want to see. So in this world right now, you will have Meta will be able to claim the attribution. We'll get the brand will see that it came from Tickle as like a deferred intent signal. That we
Yeah. It's like you hang out with Guy Ritchie too much.
Yeah, this is it. This is it. I'm just waiting for him to make a decent movie, which he hasn't done
So
for a
yeah,
while.
yeah, it would be nice. Uh, well, listen, we're winding up here. It was a good chat, and we'll be in Cannes in a week. So I
So
bet
we will.
you have some exciting things going on there, I imagine. And then
Yeah, I
also
mean,
you're gonna be on the bottleneck pod with Roy Sutherland, right?
yes. So confirmed this week. So we're doing. I got invited on last week again, near enough out of the blue. Like Rory's going to be on stage at Madfest, live filming of the Bottleneck podcast. Do you want to come and sit with him and be part of that? So
That's
now
great.
I've got a month to think of something smart to say, so I don't get embarrassed off the stage.
Well, all
Um,
this was good prep for that then.
no, it's good. I mean, look, that's going to be insane. I just got to keep telling myself, you're on stage, you need to say something. Because when Rory starts talking, you listen, right?
Yeah. It's
But no,
compelling. It's like
it
it's like the professor that you always remember from university because he's so good.
exactly. Like if you can do anything, and I think we say on stage or anywhere and on these things, like teach somebody something. If
Yeah,
somebody can learn something and you're saying something different from everybody else, I think there's a takeaway, and he does that every time he opens his mouth, which is phenomenal.
totally.
But
Totally.
yeah, can will be great as well. Like so, we've built the tech effectively to sit at the DSP layer. We're actually launching something very new and exciting, which will open us up to entirely full automation end to end, which brings in the SSP conversations as well, because it's how people shop. So our goal, our view is that every single ad should have a savable mechanic to it because it doesn't detract from what exists today. We don't change the creative. Everything sits on top and accompanies it. So we're not competing with other ad formats. We're effectively completing the journey that they started. Um,
Yeah. I love it. I
exciting.
can't wait to see how this unfolds and to do this again in well I want to do an update with you like in September before advertising week in New York, which is the week of I think what is it October 5th to 9th.
Yeah,
Um and uh and see and just get some new stories around usage, clients, and how things that you find in this because it's fascinating. I think it's great.
yeah. I mean, we've got the data. I mean, the data we're getting is just incredible, and it's telling so many stories. Which right now I don't even know if people have access to actually see what we're doing because we can get data out of the walled gardens in terms of
Oh,
intent. So,
yeah, but yeah, you can't get that, and that's a very compelling bridge. And I was just thinking, like David Ogilvy and Bill Bernbach, Mary Wells, they would probably really hate programmatic advertising. They would hate it, just like a lot of
mm,
creatives do. They've never really been leaned into it because they kind of know better. There's only so much you can get for a $1 CPM, right? And finally,
yeah,
people kind of know that, right? Um, but they would like this. They would like if you thought about like them back in the days of Mad Men, right? Writing copy and doing in magazines and newspapers, like, and what did people do? People literally took scissors and cut things out
yeah,
of magazines and newspapers.
yeah. I mean,
They did it
if we had
all the time.
yeah, if we had another hour, we can talk about that. And to be honest, I think that's what I'm going to be talking about a lot with Rory as well, because believe it or not, there was a world where people actually enjoyed seeing the ads because they were made well. There was elements of humor and entertainment, and it was a light relief from kind of
Listen, I'm old
the
enough to
world.
remember like being like in a doctor's office or a dentist's office, and you're there with your mom. You got your appointment, and they got the magazines. They got like all these
Yeah,
every
yeah,
magazine, right? And you'd be flipping through it, and people had literally ripped pages out because they were saving this thing that they saw, right?
yeah, yeah,
And so,
yeah.
so it's an interesting behavior, and it's just I think it's a very common behavior. And it's a useful behavior for people who want to buy something that they're interested in. So, well, we'll see you in France in a couple days. So thanks for
Yeah.
doing this, Joe.
No, thanks again, Tom. It's always great to talk, mate.
Always good, my friend. Have a good one.
Cheers. Take care, mate.
Bye.